Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do a wrap up for the months of January and February because I haven't read that many books as of yet, and I thought, well, it will take forever to catch you up on the months separately, so let's just wrap it into one big video. So let's go. So 2019 for me started with the book The Stormcrow by Callan Josephson, and this is actually the first book that is a 2019 release. And I got an advanced reader copy in the edition of the Fairy Loot subscription box back in November. So I thought I would kick off the year, and one of my resolutions, reading resolutions that is, for the year of 2019 was to read more of the fantasy releases and releases in general from the new year. And this is a fantasy that is in a very interesting premise. It's about a girl who, you can tell, like, whether I like a book or not by the fact that I forget character names. So it's set in this tropical kingdom that has a lot of strength, and that strength is tied to them having magic crows that kind of channel the elements, and those crows allow them to fly into the sky, allow them to grow certain crops in these tropical kingdoms, and kind of keep the weather in check, so kind of keep the hot at bay. And this kingdom is at war with a more northern kingdom that is more typical fantasy setting, a bit of like European medieval setting, and those kingdoms war with each other. And we start with the princess, who is just about to go into the ceremony and get her own crow, and she's super excited when the kingdom is overturned and all of the crows are extinguished and killed, and so is her mother, and basically this princess and her sister are the only ones left to kind of figure out where they're going from there. And this story has been very heavily laced and inspired with the struggle with depression. The main heroine suffers from it, and all of her decisions are colored by her battles. And overall I really liked the premise, and I think the opening chapters were where most of the story came alive to me. The descriptions of the crows and their kingdom was very beautiful, and I really wanted to see that. Obviously when the kingdom got overturned I figured out, okay, this is not where the story is going. I guess I will have to wait to find out what happened with the crows. And yeah, the crows kind of, don't play as big of a part in this story as I would have liked to. This is the first book in a series, and unfortunately I didn't really gel with the heroine, despite the fact that I understood her motivation, I understood her feeling of powerlessness, especially her struggle with depression. I figured, I don't know, I just couldn't connect with her very much. I felt like the plot was jumping all around. The main heroine has to kind of make friends or keep the other kingdom at bay so that they don't invade and kill everybody. And she's basically a hostage princess, so she has to go to the other foreign kingdom to kind of act as, I don't know, like, it's not even a fact. They wanted her to marry the prince of the neighboring kingdom, and so she didn't really want to, and so it's all about their relationship. And I felt like it was not insta-lovey, that's for sure, but the relationship between them was very lackluster, and there was a romance in this novel that I was also not behind with, because it all happened so very quickly, and for the majority of the book really nothing much happened. I mean, the court intrigue was really weak, the power play was uneven, so it's clear that the girl doesn't present any major challenge going into a foreign kingdom. It's really hard to stand up for yourself, but she's constantly being brash and acting out in certain ways where it would be really, really predictable that it wouldn't go down well. And I did like the twist at the end, but unfortunately the book only merited 2 stars for me in the end. Then I moved on to The Wicked King, our hot release from Holly Black. And when I read The Cruel Prince last year, I felt like it lacked a little bit, because the opening chapters got me really excited for the story, and as the story progressed, it's like, it's okay, it's not that bad, it's not my favorite thing ever. It was really hyped, as you remember. The Wicked King, though, I saw the cover and I was like, I don't care, I wanna have this. It's a total cover buy, but actually I'm quite pleased with how the series is progressing. I like Jude, I like how you know, uneven of a character she is. She does good things, she does bad things, she fucks up a lot. I have no idea what's going on with her, but it's such a fun ride to go on. And actually the plot twist in the second half of the book really got me. I was like, okay, I didn't see this coming. And when a big plot twist happened, I really felt like my heart pumping. I was like, okay, so she's got to play this carefully lest something bad is going to happen. And so I thought that Holly really did a good job. And I kind of saw like where the ending was going, but it ended on a such strong note that I think I'm going to be reading the rest of the series now. Unfortunately, I gave away my first copy of The Cruel Prince, so that's the only book I own now, which is kind of stupid. But yeah, I'm hoping the covers will continue to be as magnificent as all that. I think I gave the book 4 stars, which is quite nice. So if you are into fairy fantasy with a land that is really cutthroat and all murdery, and you want to see how a human girl is faring in this fairy kingdom where everybody is super hateful towards humans, then you're gonna love it, and I think it's a good fantasy series to go into anyway. And with the protagonist, with Jude, you either like her or you hate her, so don't be surprised if it's not your cup of tea, but hey, at least you tried. Then I went to the historical novel of Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale, which is set in the Second World War and follows the life story of 2 sisters, and this was a good historical fiction. I like historical fiction. I don't really enjoy particularly the reading about the Second World War because, well, it just hits a bit too close to home, and as I'm from St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg was in a blockade, it was blocked throughout the whole of the war, and to be honest, you know, I've seen a lot of movies about the World War II and a lot of different articles, so every time I'm picking up a book about it, I really want it to surprise me and give me some emotions. In the end, it did deliver a punch. It wasn't quite as strong as I would have probably preferred. I mean, nothing can compare to The Book Thief, because that book just had me sobbing. I think I finished it when I was on the public transport, and I just kept... Hey Kitty. I just kept weeping and weeping and weeping, and this just made me shed a really sad tear. Which is also an interesting book, I guess. I really liked how it was giving you the perspectives of 2 very different sisters. One is more calculating and less emotionally driven, and the other one is just an explosion of emotions, and you can really tell how different their lives are going to be from that point on when they're changed by the war. So if you like historical fiction, give that a go. A lot of people find it really, really heartbreaking. Yeah, well, give me a book about World War II with a happy ending, because I haven't read any of those lately, and I can understand why. So I still have All the Light You Cannot See to go, so we will see what I think about that. But this was, I think, like a 3 to 4 stars read. Not spectacular, but I'm really glad that I read this book, so yay! Also in January, I read The Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, and that's the 3rd book in his Way of Kings series, and that series is probably the best series I read in high fantasy as of this point. I love Brandon Sanderson, and I love everything he's writing, and don't be deceived. This comes in 2 different tomes. I just picked the first one. Yeah, it's a special edition. It just comes like segmented into 2 parts because it's a really, really heavy book. But it's just so good. If you haven't read The Way of Kings, like, don't be discouraged by the size of it, because once you start reading, you won't care, because you will just be so freaking happy that you picked it up. And The Oathbringer, I don't know, I mean, they're all really good books. It's getting really unpredictable. I have no idea where the series is going to go. There's maybe like 10 books total, or at least 7, and whew, the stakes are so high. I love all of the main characters, and I'm really, really worried that we might lose some of them at this point, because it's been 3 books, and it's getting more and more dangerous, and so I'm super, super worried. So that's a good sign in a fantasy book. Like, you don't even need to know what The Way of Kings is about. Like, just pick it up, go into it blind, you will love it, I guarantee it. Then I read another historical fiction, and this time it was The Shoemaker's Wife by Adriana Trigiani. And this one was a love ode to the expat life in yeah, in America as well as Italy in general. I think the best part of the book was the descriptions of nature. This is positioned as a historical saga going throughout a lot of time, a lot of years as two people, a girl and a guy, grow up and they cross paths in Italy, then they cross paths in New York, and then they build a life. And I think that this book's romance really fell flat for me. There was a lot of show versus tell, and I really saw it, so it really jumped out at me. So we were constantly being told how the characters are feeling, instead of me really sympathizing with them, and I really liked the characters on their own, but when they came together I was like, really not feeling it. So I gave this one in the end, I think 3 stars because I was being benevolent. But in fact it was more like a 2 stars. It's very beautiful. The descriptions of nature and the Italian mountains are very beautiful. The description of expat and like building your life in New York at the turn of a century is also very poignant. And the best part was when one of the main characters, Enza, was working in the opera, and I thought it was just great. I loved reading about her work as a seamstress, and I wish that the book went more into that direction instead of making it into a love story where I didn't feel like it had that much of a resonance. So that's what I read. And then I did a reread of An Ember in the Ashes by Sabata here. Oh god, the cats are just everywhere today. As soon as I started filming, they all woke up and they all came to visit me. So An Ember in the Ashes I read maybe like 2 years ago, and I ordered A Torch Against the Night together with that book because I was so eager to read it. And it didn't make me want to pick up the second one, but I thought, oh, what the hell, I'm in a bit of a reading slump, I'm going to figure out what I want to do. And I really liked rereading the book at the second time. I think the first book flows really well. Quite enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars again. It's not quite a 5. If you don't know what this is a Roman-inspired setting with 2 main protagonists. One is Laia, who is a scholar, and scholars are persecuted by the I want to say legionnaires, but basically, yeah, this Roman-inspired society who's going really hard on the scholars because they had knowledge at one point and now they're all enslaved and in misery, and Laia is kind of struggling to save her brother from a very painful death in prison. And the other side of the story is Elias, who is training to be a lethal assassin sort of commander called the Mask. And all the masks are super deadly, and he's training at the final year at his academy and he's just about to graduate, but all he wants is to actually run away and never see the Empire ever again. And that's the story of their lives kind of entangling and what's going to happen, and it's all very epic. So yeah, recommend it if you like that kind of a setting. And so I read A Torch Against the Night. Unfortunately the sequel fell shorter, well, it just fell short to me because there's a lot of travel and the stakes were high, but I was also kind of tired of the whole premise of the road trip. And one of my favorite characters at this point is Helen, who is originally Elias's friend, now sort of an enemy, and I loved seeing her progression and her story arc. I think the series might be really interesting as we go on, but since I didn't really feel the conflict in my bones, I'm not sure if I want to give this one a go or just go with other books first, because our time is really limited and there's so many interesting books to read. So I might just be letting this wait and see if I can borrow the next books off of somebody instead of just buying them. So that was me. This is all I read in January and February. Unfortunately, kind of slow, only 7 books. I read another book that is written by my friend in Russian, so unfortunately not mentioning it here because you won't be able to make use of it. She's self-published. It was a great middle grade / YA kind of novel. And now I'm moving on to other books. I hope I can really break through in March. I have some interesting books waiting for me in the mail, so I don't know if I'll do a haul because so far I only ordered 3. So let me know what you've read since the beginning of the year, and I'll see you guys with another video very soon. Bye!